Good morning and welcome. This is Mission Control in Houston. You're getting a live view of the International Space Station Flight Control Room, where flight controllers are getting ready to oversee the undocking of SpaceX's 23rd Commercial Resupply Services mission. Today we're hoping to get some live views as Dragon slowly departs from the space station, carrying with it scientific experiments and hardware for return to Earth. It's expected to splash down off the coast of Florida. This is supposed to be a relatively short operation today, but if you're curious about anything that you're seeing, be sure to head over to Twitter and submit your question using hashtag AskNASA, and if we have time later in the broadcast, we'll answer a couple.
Houston Station on 2, Dragon undock and departure review complete. ISS crew is ready for departure.
Copy, thanks Shane.
You just heard the voice of NASA astronaut Shane Kimbrough, who is aboard the International Space Station's cupola and will be monitoring today's mission. Right now we're getting a live view of the Cargo Dragon vehicle, currently docked to the International Space Station, awaiting its undocking. There are a couple of milestones that we're going to be looking out for as Dragon undocks today. The first actually has already begun with something called vestibule depressurization. This is a way of saying that the hatch on Dragon is closed and the International Space Station has closed. And now we're looking at the space in between the two hatches. If we didn't release the air between the two hatches, Dragon would just have a little bit of oomph on its way out, and we're looking for more of a smooth departure from the space station. That's why it's important for this depressurization, so we can take the air in between out. Following depressurization, our flight controller here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room will do a go, no-go pull for undock. This means that our Capcom today, or our flight director today, Jeff Radigan, will pull the flight controllers that you're seeing here on your screen. And if we get a go for undock, we'll have Capcom Scott Sagati relay to the crew that we are go for undock. Once the undock command has been sent, this does not mean that the Dragon will pull away from the space station, but rather set off a series of tasks here on our timeline. The first one being the umbilical retraction. This means that two umbilicals that do power and communications between Dragon and the space station will come off. Then we'll look for a set of two hooks to drive away. These come in sets of 6, and there's a total of 12 on Dragon, so we'll look for both sets to open up.
Houston Station on 2 for Dragon, step 4, question.
We're with you, Shane. 25 seconds to handover.
Just want to make sure I'm going to the right spot in step 4, if you can help me out when we get there.
Ready to copy.
Just are we on rush control or not? I guess that's the question.
Negative, we are on U.S. control. Catch you after the handover.
You're getting a live view of the International Space Station Flight Control Room. Also working this operation are ground controllers in SpaceX and Hawthorne at their Mission Control Center. They'll send the command to Dragon to autonomously undock, currently scheduled for 9:07 Eastern Time, 8:07 Central. After SpaceX and Hawthorne sends this command, this will set off a series of tasks, including umbilical retraction, opening up the hooks, and physical separation is expected at 9:12 a.m. Eastern Time and 8:12 Central. Once those hooks are open, they'll send the command for Dragon to conduct a series of burns that'll direct it back to Earth for splashdown. We're not going to be live on air for splashdown, but you can follow the mission on the space station's blog or on social media. There are a couple of tasks that the crew did ahead of time to get us ready for the departure today. Yesterday, Megan and Shane packed up the cargo craft, and earlier today, Megan completed some closeout tasks. Basically, this means that they're making sure that all return cargo is secure and everything is zipped up the way it should be, and she closed the hatch around 6 a.m. Central Time this morning. Now the Dragon is packed and ready to go, Shane has moved into the cupola of the space station, where he has a great view of the Cargo Dragon spacecraft. Today's operation is autonomous, so Kimbrough will only be there to take over in the unlikely event of an emergency. This isn't Shane's first time in this role. Back in July, he also monitored the undocking of SpaceX's 22nd commercial resupply services mission. Here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room, we're getting ready for the undocking of the Cargo Dragon vehicle from the space station. A vestibule depress is already underway. We're waiting for the official go-no-go poll from the flight director.
Houston Station on 2 for recycled tank drain, step 2.8, 2.8.1. Brian Yates, vessel number is 1224.
Good number. Thanks, Aki.
Once flight controllers have pulled go, ground controllers in SpaceX in Hawthorne will command Dragon to autonomously undock at 9:07 Eastern Time, 8:07 Central, which will set off a sequence of events to result in physical separation, currently scheduled for 8:12 Central.
Station Houston on 2. Dragon is go for undocking and departure. Perform steps 2 through the end of 1.602.
And you just heard Capcom.
Crew is ready for Dragon undocking.
You just heard Capcom Scott Sagatti relay to crew member Shane Kimbrough that we are go for undocking. Once that command to undock has been sent at 9:07 Eastern Time, this will set off a series of events, including the umbilical retraction and the set of 2 hooks to be released from the space station. This will give room for Dragon to do an undock burn, which will result in physical separation at 9:12 Eastern Time. In the early morning hours of August 29th, this SpaceX Cargo Dragon vehicle launched on a Falcon 9 rocket from Cape Canaveral in Florida. It was carrying 4,800 pounds of scientific experiments, supplies, and food to the astronauts and cosmonauts living aboard the space station. It arrived at the orbiting lab 32 hours later on August 30th. Aboard the station, NASA astronauts Megan MacArthur and Shane Kimbrough monitored Dragon's arrival as it autonomously docked to the forward-facing port on the station's Harmony module. Right now we're in a brief but expected handover period between our communication satellites, and we should get a live view of Dragon docked to the space station any minute now. On board the International Space Station now, we have Russian cosmonaut Pyotr Dubrov, NASA astronaut Shane Kimbrough. To his right, we have NASA astronaut Megan MacArthur. To the right of that, we have ESA astronaut Thomas Pesquet from France and Aki Hoshide from Japan. On his right, we have Oleg Novitsky, another Russian cosmonaut, and we have Mark Vande Hei of NASA. These are the astronauts currently aboard the International Space Station. Shane Kimbrough is positioned in the cupola to monitor today's events in the unlikely event of an emergency. While some cargo vehicles burn up in Earth's atmosphere to help the space station eliminate waste, this Cargo Dragon was actually on a return journey back to Earth. It's currently full of scientific experiments and hardware. While we won't be live for splashdown, it is expected to make a parachute-assisted splashdown off the coast of Florida later today. Vestibule depressurization is now complete for this vehicle, and the command has been sent. Now we're looking for the umbilicals to retract. These umbilicals provide power and data between Dragon and the space station. And now that it's departing, it's no longer going to need these, and this is the first step in our sequence to undock. The first set of hooks have opened. Dragon has 12 hooks that are released 6 at a time. We're now looking for that second set to start opening.
First set of hooks are open. Dragon is committed to undock.
Station copies.
Just heard Capcom Scott Sagatti relay to Shane Kimbrough that the first set of hooks are now open, and we've committed to undocking. Once all hooks are open, we'll be looking for a series of undock burns that are super short, and when I say short, I just mean seconds at a time. The first one lasting about 2 seconds, and the second lasting about 5.
All hooks open.
Copy. Physical separation confirmed.
All hooks are now open, and Dragon departed the space station at 8:12 with physical separation. You're getting a live view of it inching away now. Dragon undocked at 8:12 while the International Space Station was flying over the Pacific Ocean. And we just got confirmation that the departure burn was nominal.
Dragon separation is confirmed, and Dragon departure burn 0 complete.
Station copies.
The first set of departure burns has been complete, and it was nominal. We're now waiting on the next departure burn, scheduled to occur in about 5 minutes.
Zone 2 for UPA. UPA is configured for recycle tank drain. Go to proceed with commander drain.
Copy, Aki.
Dragon has 16 Draco thrusters that will be used to guide Dragon away from the space station during its departure burns. 4 of these Draco thrusters are underneath the nose cone and will be used for burns as it gets closer to Earth. These initial burns will be completed by the remaining 12 Draco thrusters on the service section of the capsule.
Houston Station set 4, ISS thrusters enabled.
Copy.
These departure burns help Dragon move out of the space station's keep-out sphere. This is an imaginary sphere about 200 meters in radius around the space station. It's one of several safety zones set up to govern visiting spacecraft, such as Dragon, either arriving or, in this case, departing the space station. Before moving into the keep-out sphere, the spacecraft must have been configured in a way that it would not cross this imaginary boundary for at least 4 orbits, even if the spacecraft lost all maneuvering. Dragon is expected to leave the keep-out sphere in about 3 minutes.
Departure burn 1 complete.
Station copies, and it looks great in the corridor.
Copy that.
The second in a series of departure burns has been completed, and it was nominal. Now we're waiting for Dragon to leave the keep out sphere.
Dragon has exited the keep out sphere.
Station copies. Station on 2 for Dragon. I want to give a huge thank you to the SpaceX and the NASA teams for getting this vehicle up to us in great shape. With a lot of science and surprise for the ISS. The activities associated with SpaceX 23 kept our crew busy over the past month. We look forward to hearing about the results of the payloads we interacted with. Have a safe journey back to Earth.
Great word, Shane. Thanks for that right there, and thank you to the whole crew for all the work you've done for this mission.
Dragon has officially exited the keep out sphere at 8:19 Central. Capcom Sagati relayed this information to Shane Kimbrough, who gave some well wishes to Dragon on its departure and words of thanks to the NASA and SpaceX teams who keep scientific investigations going on the International Space Station through the Commercial Resupply Services program. Dragon's next milestone on its journey is to exit the approach ellipsoid. This is another imaginary shape, like the keep-out sphere. This time it's more three-dimensional and pizza box shapes. It's an ellipsoid measuring 4 by 2 by 2 kilometers. One of the key differences in the approach ellipsoid is that vehicles outside of it have to be on what we call a 24-hour safe drift trajectory. That means the spacecraft would not cross into the approach ellipsoid for at least 24 hours, again, in the unlikely event that Dragon loses all maneuvering. We anticipate that Dragon will reach this milestone in approximately 10 minutes. As we're waiting for Dragon to leave the approach ellipsoid coming up in about 9 minutes from now, let's take some questions on social media. We have Esther on Twitter asking if there will be any tardigrades coming back on Dragon. While there will not be any tardigrades coming back on this Dragon, there are a number of other scientific experiments coming back. First being the anti-atrophy test, which is a JAXA experiment that looks at biomaterials that could slow the loss of muscle and biomaterials that could accelerate muscle growth. These two cultures will be returned to Earth on Dragon, so researchers can look at the effectiveness of biomaterials that they tested. Research like this can help not only space station astronauts who undergo muscle atrophy in space, but also people on Earth who may suffer from muscle loss. Another experiment we have coming back is the ring shear drop experiment. This looks at the forces of gravity on liquids in containers. When thinking about the body, this might mean blood in your arteries. This device uses surface tension rather than a solid container with walls to hold liquids. Then when they use this to test protein aggregates that could be linked to diseases like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and type 2 diabetes. Results could improve fundamental understanding on how these protein aggregates form and are transported in the body. In addition to these experiments coming back, we've got some equipment coming back as well, such as the critical connector caps and plugs that were necessary during the installation spacewalks for the International Space Station rollout solar arrays. They're being returned for storage and use for future upgraded solar array installations, and the next set of IROSs are scheduled to launch the space station next year. We're now about 5 minutes out from Dragon exiting the approach ellipsoid, which is the neighborhood of the space station. After Dragon leaves the approach ellipsoid, Mission Control in Houston will hand over control of Dragon to SpaceX's Mission Control in Hawthorne. From there, Dragon will complete a series of more departure burns and phase burns to direct Dragon back to Earth to splash down off the coast of Florida. As we wait for Dragon to leave the approach ellipsoid of the International Space Station, scheduled for about 8:31 Central Time, let's go over some of the things that Dragon had to undergo in order to get here. Remember that all of these commands are autonomously sent from Hawthorne, so the crew was not involved in these steps. After the undock command was sent, 2 umbilicals retracted and 12 hooks were undone, 6 at a time. Dragon then underwent 2 undock burns and 2 departure burns and has left the keep-out sphere of the International Space Station. Now that Cargo Dragon is undocked from the forward port of the station's Harmony module, this has created a space on the port that will be used by the Crew Dragon vehicle, launching with the Crew 3 astronauts later this month. 2 Crew Dragon vehicles will be on station together for a short handover period as we wait for Crew 2 to make their departure back to Earth.
Knoxville Station on 2 for Astroby.
We are with you on 2.
Do you mind if I turn off the Astroby now, or do you want me to wait for the timeline?
And Mark, you can go ahead and abort that activity. We are going to leave it on.
Yeah, that's right. That came up with the DVC. I just forgot. Thanks very much. Station on 2 for FSL.
This is Munich. Go ahead, Thomas.
Alberto, I mean, taxi 2.200, step 1, you're welcome on board VCA 2, starboard is pointed towards FSL, and step 2, looking for your go in safing, step 2.2 complete, 2.1 for you.
And Munich copies, so that's all in place. The savings are okay, so you are good to continue with 2.2, the rack power switch. And for the communication, we should go on space to ground 4 for the communication for the afternoon.
Yeah, I'm going step 2.2, moving to 4.
Station Houston on 2. Dragon is outside the approach ellipsoid on a 24-hour safe free drift trajectory.
Station copies.
Dragon has now exited the approach ellipsoid. Vehicles outside of it have to be on what we call a 24-hour safe free drift trajectory. That means that we know for certain that Dragon will not cross into the approach ellipsoid into the neighborhood of the space station for at least 24 hours. So far, everything is on track. Today, Dragon released all 12 of its hooks and separated from the station at 8:12 a.m. Central Time, flying over the western Pacific Ocean. Conducted a series of burns first to exit the keep-out sphere, and is now on its way back to Earth. Once Dragon is back on Earth, it will splash down in one of 3 zones in the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Florida. You're not going to see splashdown live, but our coverage will conclude once Dragon is out away from the International Space Station, and it looks like, if you can see on your screen, Dragon is just a tiny dot now. Be sure to check out the Space Station blog and follow us on social media to see which splashdown site was chosen. It'll be making a parachute-assisted splashdown around 9:57 p.m. Central Time, 10:57 p.m. Eastern Time. After landing, these experiments will be brought to the shore and transferred to NASA's Space Station Processing Facility at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. Here's a look at what we've got coming up next. JAXA astronaut Aki Hoshide and Thomas Pesquet will undergo a change of command ceremony where Aki will give command to Thomas Pesquet. This is going to happen at Monday, October 4th at 3:20 p.m. Eastern Time. Also coming up, we've got the Soyuz MS-19 launch and docking coverage. Launch is scheduled to occur for our coverage at Tuesday, October 5th at 4:15 a.m. Eastern Time, with docking happening later that same day at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Dragon had an on-time departure today at 8:12 a.m. Central Time, flying over the western Pacific Ocean. Flight controllers here in Mission Control that you're seeing oversaw the operation with NASA astronaut Shane Kimbrough in the cupola to monitor. This is now in the hands of Mission Control SpaceX in Hawthorne, who will conduct a series of burns and maneuvers to get Dragon back to Earth and into the Kennedy Space Center. Looks like we've got one last live look of Dragon as it's leaving. Thanks for watching. This is Mission Control in Houston.